Humans aren't born out of laying around on their asses. We're the dominant species. We built all this. We're powerful, and we're beautiful, and we're ready to build the next level of civilization in God's plan. If you love God and you want to build a pro-human future, you must become the victor. But you have to believe in yourself first. This is the truth, and everyone knows it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a whole variety of topics to cover today. We're going to be talking about the waste, fraud, and abuse that's been uncovered by Doge as it relates to USAID and the HUD. I mean, it is insane the amount of money that they have been able to just find, and the amount of line item issues that you can look at and go, that does not help America. That is completely and totally ridiculous. Now, I know that there's some retards. They go, it's not fraud. It's not fraud. It's not fraud. It's just things that Elon and Trump don't like. Well, yeah, they don't like it. I don't like it. It is fraud. It is abuse. It is waste. However you want to categorize it, you trying to actually, like some goddamn Redditor, doesn't change the fact that this money, I don't want to pay, $7 million to, transgender interpretive dance in the middle of the Sahara Desert. This is retarded stuff that needs to be weeded out, needs to be axed, and I think that they're doing a pretty good job, and we're going to watch a couple videos about that. However, let me rant about something first, if you don't mind. I am not a fan of many content creators. If you're new to the channel, I don't like a lot of these people. I don't like Mudahar. I don't like Moist Critical. I don't like Hassan. I don't like Pokemon. I don't like Ludwig. I don't like QT Cinderella. I don't like a lot of these people. And a lot of it is because they're weak. They're absolute phonies. And they don't have the ability to cover these topics, but they pretend that they do. So the reason why I'm showing this video of Mudahar is because Mudahar, known for, getting down deep into all of the different scandals and controversies and, rooting out all of the sort of impropriety of somebody like the completionist, or, maybe Trump does a crypto coin, or, Javier Milei of Argentina does a crypto coin, and this guy will do a video on it. And he'll do a video on it, and so will Coffeezilla, Moist Critical will do a video on it. They'll all do videos on it. But when it comes to USAID, which is one of the biggest scandals, one of the biggest demonstrations of fraud, one of the biggest scams in history, not a word. And in fact, this video here is basically Mudahar complaining because he did a video and his audience didn't just agree with him. His audience was critical of some of the things that he said and some of the reasons why he said it. And they were also pointing out the fact that he's been radio silent on USAID, like a lot of these content creators have. It's been eerie to watch these people that are supposedly the super sleuths of the internet be radio silent on this. One of the biggest scandals, and by the way, it gets into gaming. The amount of money that was going to fund left-wing activistic causes to combat gamers, it's eye-watering. Not a word from any of these people. Now, I think the reasons are different. I think that a lot of these people are afraid. They're afraid of the pushback. As seen in this video, it's okay to talk about people who are more right-wing and to criticize them. It's okay to go out of your way to talk about Trump. Like, if you're criticizing Trump, that's perfectly fine. But if you're doing a video that's critical of left-wing causes, well, they sort of put everything on the back burner and don't really cover that because they're pathetic. All right? They're pathetic. They're losers. They're weak, they're inept, they're incompetent, and they don't have the spine to actually do the work required to talk about some of the biggest issues going on in gaming or around the world. So I'm going to put that on the back burner, but I had to say that because it frustrates me. And so Asmongold, of all people, has come out. He is now the #1 political streamer. And he came out with a video, and I think that this is worth a watch.
Trump and Elon Musk continue to use Doge to dismantle government overspending like USAID. The media goes into a frenzy, desperately trying to convince the public that frivolous spending was a good thing.
In Cambodia with a team that clears landmines and leftover explosives, but a freeze in U.S. foreign aid funding around the world could seriously upend progress.
Cambodia is one of the most heavily contaminated landscapes on the planet, littered with tons of bombs, bullets, and landmines, left over from years of brutal civil strife and a lot from U.S. bombing campaigns during the Vietnam War. The State Department has been a major backer of demining groups here.
With American aid drying up in places like Cambodia, projects everywhere will depend on other countries to fill that funding gap, including China.
Oh
no. I sort of cut this guy off. Oh no. And these people are so dishonest. And I just did a video on a mainstream news anchor going out there and trying to say that free speech was responsible for the Holocaust. These people, what they're trying to do is they're trying to emotionally manipulate you into just simply agreeing with, like, you could look at this and you could say, okay, well, I could sort of understand where, maybe the U.S. should help. I don't personally believe that, but I could understand somebody saying, well, maybe the U.S. should help and demining these areas and stuff. But that's not really what they're talking about. That's not really what they care about. They don't give a shit about Cambodia. What they want to do is they want to keep the gravy train going. They want to make you go, oh, well, okay, well, they just blanket, like unfreeze everything. Have the money go, like the money going to the LGBT interpretive dance in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Have all that money go back and just continue funding all the shit that it was funding. That's what they want. They just want to emotionally manipulate you so that you go, okay, well, I suddenly am against this. That's what they want. They want you to look at one thing and then just tune out. And the problem is that there's not enough stuff that they can use that with to counterbalance all of the fraud, waste, and abuse that has been found in the ledgers. And so, it's outrageous that these people in the media are willing to try to convince you to spend your tax dollars on frivolous, ridiculous projects in the Middle East and abroad, mostly having to do with LGBTQ and other degenerate filth. But they want to convince you to go against your own best interest because they may get a little piece of the pie. They may get some of the scraps. Like Politico getting millions and millions of dollars from the government, from this sort of stuff. The BBC getting millions and millions of dollars. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, and I think that the American people have woken up to this, and I don't think they're buying it anymore.
No, China might have to spend their money on humanitarian aid on the continent that they share. How dare we expect them to contribute? We better immediately resume sending billions of dollars to minesweeping and underwater basket weaving, just so the Chinese can continue focusing on bolstering their navy. It's almost like these newscasters don't even listen to themselves, or even proofread what they're writing. as a caption over this clip is U.S. aid freeze.
Here's the issue, right? Is that in a lot of cases, like probably some of this is our fault for sure. But the issue is like kind of what I was saying just like actually a little bit ago, where like you can't expect a bunch of people to let me think of a way to say this. It's
let me step in. It is unreasonable to expect that, for example, Asmongold's child, if Asmongold has a kid, that kid should be held responsible for something that Asmongold said during the stream, for example. Holding that kid responsible for something that Asmongold's kid wasn't even alive for. Holding them responsible, be like, well, no, you have to make restitution to somebody that was offended or bothered or affected by what Asmongold said here. The answer to that is absolutely not. Absolutely not. The sins of the father and all that. No. No. We were giving aid for how many decades? We were giving money for how many decades? Well, guess what? The gravy train is over. It's done. No, you're not getting any more money. If you have to go get more money from China, fine. But you're not getting it from us anymore. We're done. I think that's perfectly fair. We paid years into this. Years. And if we took all of the waste, fraud, and abuse, if we took all of this stuff and put it towards fixing our problems here and helping our people here, it would be one of the greatest humanitarian causes in the world. Helping our people to get right. Putting American tax dollars towards helping American people. What a novel concept that is. I gotta tell you, and some people will disagree, but for the most part, I don't give a shit about the rest of the world. I don't give a shit. I don't explain, because they're not us. The UK, Germany, I mean, these places are authoritarian hellscapes. These are places where they will arrest somebody for silently praying in front of an abortion clinic. These are places that will arrest people for jokes. These are places where they will have lawyers and other people go out and say that it is a crime to insult somebody on the internet. A crime. They will go out there and say it is a crime to tell a lie. Who determines if it's a lie or not? Well, the government. So understand, at this point, I'm not in the business of helping any of these people. None of them are grateful for our help. None of them appreciate what we do. All of them have this anti-American sentiment and attitude. Well, fine. Let them have that on their own time, and we can keep our money and help our people.
It's 100% our fault, right? Yeah, well, let's say it is. But like, let's say you're 30, like you're 34, like I'm 34. Do I want to have the generational accountability for something that I wasn't even alive during, that all my tax dollars have to go towards? Like, I'm sorry, but like, no, not really, right? And so 24, I said 34. And so exactly, right? And so like, I think that as people, as more people that are like, weren't alive for this, get into the voting force, they're not really going to want to be accountable for something that happened when they weren't even alive.
Which is actually what they wanted you to think. USAID.
It's kind of like what I was saying, the sins of our fathers. Yeah, exactly, right? And so I think that if you can't use that argument to a young person, I think to an older person, then maybe that could be effective. But I think especially to young audiences, it's just simply not anymore. It's not our sin. It's not our responsibility. Yeah, exactly.
Or aid to other countries, when it's really the United States Agency for International Development, meaning spreading liberal initiatives to third world countries that have zero of the cultural issues we have in America. But sure, help inject DEI programs into Burmese scholarships and LGBT initiatives in Cambodia.
One thing that I found very telling about this USAID is that there were people from these countries that didn't even know that it was happening.
True.
And I feel like that was probably more telling than anything, that if the entire intent of this is to create soft power in these countries, but the people that are in the countries don't even know that it's happening, what are the odds that this money just isn't really making itself, it's just really not making its way over?
True, it's fraud. It's one of the biggest scams in history. I mean, the price tag for some of these, you know, it's sort of like when Mudahar or Moist Critical or Ludwig or, you know, all these people do these videos on Gerard the Completionist and his charity that didn't donate, you know, $800,000. It's like $800,000 in the scheme of like what we're talking about here is like a rounding error. Like one of the videos that we're gonna watch in a minute is this one right here, where the HUD gets audited, and they recovered $1.9 billion. They recovered $1.9 billion that was just wasted. It was just like there's so much money that's being spent that Doge, just doing a bare minimum audit, is saving us billions of dollars already. Billions. And so it's so astonishing that these people in the content creator space don't have a word for this. Not a single word. They don't touch it. They don't talk about it. This should be the number one thing. The U.S. government under a leftist regime was funding money to anti-gamer causes. You know, anti-gamergate, you know, wokeness in gaming, all of this stuff. They don't have a word for any of this. And the amount of money that we're talking about is so massive that it eclipses every scam that these people have ever talked about. If you took Logan Paul, you took Gerard the Completionist, you took everyone, Hawk Tua, you took all of them, every single one of them. One of these scams from the U.S. government is bigger than all of them. One of them. One of them. You take a line item like, you know, LGBTQ curriculum in Dubai, $7 million. That one thing is bigger than all the scams that they've ever talked about over the years, and yet not a single word about any of it. They don't have a single thing to say. Is that not the most telling thing you've ever seen?
Over to that group of people. That's what I think is happening. Because, yeah, how is this? It's money grabbing. Yeah, what is this? This is very interesting.
Behind the guise of sweeping landmines on the side. As I do understand, landmines are terrifying. Is going to
fuck that.
Munitions. This is me having absolutely zero faith that if we continue to throw them billions of our dollars in an effort to eliminate their landmine issue, more than 99% of that cash is never actually going to go to protecting their people from landmines. As USAID isn't.
All right. 29 million to improve young Egyptians' skills. 3.3 million for LGBTI experience in the Caribbean. 4.5 million to fight Kazakhstan disinformation. Yajamash, my name is Borat. We need $4.5 million to fight disinformation. Great success. It's like, the fuck are we doing? 49 million to improve Zambia schools reading. Like, This is insane. This doesn't help American interests at all. These are our tax dollars that are going to this. It's outrageous. It's unfair. All of this money should be going to help Americans. All of this money should be going to help Americans. Let me say that one more time for you retarded freaks in the back. It's not fraud. All of this is fraud. All of this is waste. All of this is abuse. And it should be ended. And all of this money should be going to help people in the United States of America.
Aid. It's $29 million going to improve young Egyptian skills. $30 million for the LGBTI experience in the Caribbean. $4 million to fight internet troll.
Bro, to fight. This is.
Yes, Jamaj. My name is.
I bet there are people, you know, like that meme of like the really big fat guy with the water pipe, and then there's the little skinny guy trying to get like 1 or 2 drops. I think that the big fat guy is these different bureaucrats, and the skinny guy is the actual citizens.
Right.
I bet probably like a very small fraction of this actually gets seen by the public,
right,
and distributed in a way that's beneficial.
True.
I think that it's totally mismanaged, probably. Yeah. We got to stop the spending. Yeah, exactly. And that's also like, you know, assuming that it's even a good idea in the first place.
In Kazakhstan, and even when we spend here locally, there was $59 million for hotels in New York City, but for the migrants. And remember, we covered the crisis in NYC at length, then discovered that we house migrants in the Roosevelt Hotel for millions, proposing an additional $220 million, all going to Pakistan. As Pakistan's government owns the Roosevelt Hotel in America, who is now being handsomely compensated to assist in the destruction of New York City. But as long as we label all this as aid and life-saving, the news media can prance around in the public's face, trying to shame us into continuing this obvious scam. As a politician,
I think that's what happens primarily, is that people put an emotional slant on this, and then they try to use that in order to make people afraid to push back against it. And I think that if you actually look at the numbers and see how it actually fits together, it wouldn't make as much sense.
Yeah, it's insane. And thankfully, we have people that are in there now that are not being emotionally blackmailed, that are actually doing the job, and in the end, it's going to be good for all Americans. It's going to be good for everyone. Doge is already finding billions of dollars, multiple billions of dollars already found. This is, not only is this paid for itself, I mean, like, unbelievably, but this has been a net good to expose some of the corruption. I mean, isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy that this is where we're at? And here's Bernie Sanders, one of the most corrupt politicians. I mean, I know that people, oh, good old Bernie. No, Bernie is an insane, crusty, communist, just one of the worst. And he's all for the corruption and the overspending and stuff like that. As with AOC and a lot of these people, it's just despicable. It really, really is.
You're the first one to say that you don't choose where you spawn since you're in the U.S. You are guilty by proxy. That's life. Okay, well, I'm going to choose to not be guilty. I've decided that I'm not guilty anymore.
That's such a great answer.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm going to put that point in the garbage, and I'm going to do what's in my best interest.
Yep.
So, yeah, no, I mean, I understand other people might think that, but that doesn't, that's it. And by the way, I think that that's the way a lot of people that are my age believe. How many of you guys around my age think the exact same thing?
True.
Like, I'm not going to try to hold, like, and I feel like this is even true in a contemporary sense. Like, don't...
Not only with education, but with other...
Disgusting. And so
Politicians are now claiming eliminating fraud is unconstitutional.
You know, what is going on in this country, not only with education, but with other institutions, is the president is operating in a very authoritarian, illegal, and unconstitutional way.
Well, first of all, this freak doesn't care about the Constitution. Doesn't care about the rule of law, only when they can try to use it. But it's not unconstitutional to stop waste, fraud, and abuse. It's just not. Democrats, I can't believe Trump is so effective at what he does that he's able to get these retards, these bureaucrats, to come out and say, oh yeah, Donald Trump, the president, doesn't have the authority. He doesn't have the authority to, fire people or to make decisions as it relates to spending. Like how the money goes to certain places. It's like, that is so ridiculous. These people are such a joke. And they must think that their constituents are just mentally retarded, because there's no way that any person acting in good faith would believe anything that these people say.
Then other Democrat senators go on ABC to echo that same sentiment.
A constitutional crisis, grossly unconstitutional, pretty alarming language.
Yeah, listen, I think this is the most serious constitutional crisis the country has faced. Certainly.
And by the way, this guy looks like he's sitting on a pull up his ass. They didn't care about the unconstitutionality when Biden was president. They didn't care about any of that. They didn't care about the rule of law. They didn't care about any of that. The lawfare against Trump. No, they were gleeful about it. They celebrated it. But now that Trump is actually doing something that's in the best interest for the American people, these people are freaking out. No, what Donald Trump isn't doing what he's doing does not go against the Constitution. The constitutional crisis is these left-wing radical judges, these activists. They're activists abusing our law to try to force the commander-in-chief into giving up parts of his power because they don't like what he's doing. That is the constitutional crisis. Trump should just ignore them. And the Republicans in office should impeach them, each one. When they pop their head up, you just whack-a-mole. They should impeach every single one of these leftist judges. Every single one. They should have an assembly line of impeaching these judges. One after the other. Get them out.
Since Watergate, the president is attempting to seize control of power. And
the president is trying to seize control of power? The commander-in-chief is trying to seize control of power. These people are freaks. And they deserve your contempt and your mockery. And to be honest, if it were up to me, if I were president for a day, I would make a law saying that you can pelt these people with vegetables when they walk in the street. Tomatoes, nothing too hard, soft vegetables, tomatoes, vegetables that have gone rotten, by the way. We're not going to waste vegetables on these people. Nothing too hard. I'm not talking about a potato, all right? I'm talking about a vegetable that would, pretty much just splatter on them, I think that should be the norm. That we have vegetables that we throw at these people because they're the fools. They're the town jesters. And, they deserve the mockery and the ridicule that comes from their position and what they've chosen to do.
And for corrupt purposes.
And now CNN parrots their talking points.
And tonight, there are warnings that the U.S. is dangerously close to
never mind. Maybe not.
Constitutional crisis.
Then NPR, The Intercept, Fox News.
What happens if Trump starts ignoring court rulings? We break it down. Constitutional crisis looms. Democrats continue to panic over a constitutional crisis caused by Doge. I think what's ended up happening is that
The New York Times, Yahoo, MSNBC, AP, and basically everybody is echoing the so-called constitutional crisis we're currently facing.
Yeah.
And there's a reason this meme took off, I think, in late 2020. First, it was 15 days to slow the curve. Then it was lockdowns and masks.
Yep.
Then it was get this.
It's the boy who cried wolf. Yeah, and I think that it's happened. It's happened in a lot of cases, and I feel like I think that it's just I don't know. Like I could come up with like 10 different examples. I've talked about this a lot, so I don't want to like kind of rehash it all the time. But like I just think that it's such a big problem nowadays that you have such extreme emotionally driven rhetoric that ends up causing people to work against their best interest in the long run. COVID woke a lot of people up. It did. And COVID, what I think COVID primarily did is that it got a lot of people to distrust the government. And I think that it caused them and it damaged the trust that they had in the government in a way that is, I think, irreparable in the next like 10 or 20 years.
No, here's where I would disagree. I think it has damaged trust in the government from Democrats. I do. I think that there's a distinction that has been made. I think Republicans have come out of it looking better. So, for example, I think that a lot more people have trust in Trump's government now that we know what we know. Like, at the time, when they were running, the election for 2020, I think that COVID was in full swing. I think that the misinformation was going wild. But I think one of the reasons why Trump won is because people have become aware of the fact that there was so much dishonesty from Democrat lawmakers, Democrat politicians. They handled it in about the worst way you could possibly imagine. Gretchen Whitmer, in my opinion, the governor of Michigan, I think she should be in prison for what she did to the elderly. Steven Crowder has gone over this. Like what she did to the elderly, like the people that lost their life, she intentionally put sick people into nursing homes. I think she should be in prison for the rest of her life, personally.
And the media.
Injection, then support this.
I mean, I couldn't have told you the difference, but it's about games media on a smaller scale. Is that everybody was talking about how it was bad that only one company owned all of these other different media outlets. But if you could, I couldn't have told you the difference. Like if I had...
Look at that. Political Pro subscription for 37 users. $517,000.
Read an article from any games publication, I could have assumed it was from any games publication. Because they basically all write the same, they sound the same, they have the same message, they even use the same terms like the return to form, etc. I think that it's insane.
Enough, we're finding a lot of news outlets received money directly from the government. Then those same news outlets are telling us to stop looking into government spending. Seems suspicious, especially when they basically champion Biden for notoriously not listening to the law.
Well, I think that it really,
it's true.
I feel like with the debate with Biden, I think that what that was really revealing for was the amount of complicit cover-up that a lot of media had done for Biden's cognitive decline.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that after it was made evident in the debate, it caused a lot of people to distrust the media because they could go back and look at all of the clips and all of the posts that had been made saying that, oh yeah, he's totally sharp and everything.
Yeah.
And then you see this happen and him saying, him like losing track of what he's saying and just like rambling off on bullshit.
Right.
And to be fair, Trump does that too, but Biden does it a lot worse.
Trump does not do that. Trump, it's not the same. It's not the same in any way, shape, matter, or form. It's not the same in any way, shape, matter, or form. In fact, by comparing them, at all, Asman, I think, loses a little bit of credibility, because that's Donald Trump he can sign executive orders while answering questions from the press and be just absolutely sharp. Biden could not do that. There is no comparison there at all.
And I think that what happened is that also damaged a lot of their...
To make the normies think Elon uncovering government fraud is against your best interest, when in actuality, they only seem to be protecting themselves. As watch Fox News dunk on MSNBC for blatantly misinforming their viewers.
Elon Musk has apparently...
Every president pardons people. Well, it's a very...
So you get the gist of the video. We're not going to watch the whole thing. A lot of it is him going back and forth with his audience. Apparently, there are some massive retards in his audience that really genuinely don't understand this. So he takes the time to inform them. So we'll just skip to the end here.
Fraud. But at least the more they struggle against Doge, the more they know they're on the right track. As look at Washington, D.C. Almost entirely liberal,
crazy?
like the politicians that are freaking out. And exactly 1 week ago, Battle Beagle was wondering what Doge would do to D.C. real estate. But as
I saw one thing that was really interesting, and I'm sure there's no correlation at all with this, but let me see if I can find it. In Washington, D.C., a lot of Google searches have started to explode for criminal defense lawyer, RICO law, Swiss bank, offshore bank, wire money, IBAN, and statute of limitations. Very interesting that happened.
Right?
Coincidence. I mean, we are in a world of coincidences here.
Yeah. Yeah, coincidences.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking.
Different place. Oh, here we go.
Trends across America for lawyer is pretty consistent throughout the year, but in DC only, it suddenly skyrocketed on nearly the exact date Donald Trump was inaugurated as president, and continues to climb. I know search terms
Now, I'm sorry, but this does look like a roach out to me.
It does. 100%.
It does. And maybe it's not.
Oh, it is.
But man, it sure as fuck looks like it.
Yeah. Well, all right. So we're gonna jump over to Styx Hexenhammer over here, because we have to talk about the HUD getting audited at $1.9 billion being recovered.
Everyone, we have another big Doge win. $1.9 billion being recovered from HUD in wasteful spending. This is fairly significant. That's billion with a B, by the way, not million. 1.9 million. Yeah, it wouldn't even be worth the clerical paperwork at this point, especially after Biden inflation. I like how the price of eggs is blamed on Donald Trump, too. At this point, if you get a couple dozen of them, Gaston has given you a kingly gift. But, link in the description, by the way. Archived, of course. You can read the article for yourself. HUD is getting audited. A lot of people think housing and urban development is untouchable, and HUD, does do some good things, but there's always going to be inefficiency. This is the point with government bureaus, by the way, in general. It's not that the bureau is incapable of doing good things. It's that there's automatically going to be waste and fraud within any of these systems. This is the case for state agencies, it's the case for federal agencies, it's the case for municipal money usage. It happens all the time. I would note that the same liberals that are crying foul over this, oh my God, how dare you create more efficiency within this government agency? You're going to put people out of the HUD housing and they're going to be homeless, are the same people who ignore the fact of homelessness in the United States in favor of putting migrants in luxury hotels. I'm just saying there might be a little bit of hypocrisy there. Just a little bit. I'm being glib. There's a lot of hypocrisy.
Yes, there is. But I mean, look at this right here. Doge revealed that $1.9 billion in HUD money had been recovered as of Friday. Let me just put this in perspective. $1.9 billion was just sitting like, well, they didn't need that. There's so much waste, fraud, and abuse. It is mind-blowing that people can even pretend to defend this. But this is what's happening, and I think that it's absolutely amazing. And shame on all of these content creators that refuse to cover this at all. That refuse to talk about it. One of the biggest scams and scandals in our lifetime, and none of these content creators talk about it. You think Ludwig's going to do a video? No. You think Moist Critical is going to do a video? No. These people are pathetic. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time.